Thank you. Thank you so much, Marnie. Really appreciate being here. Oh, and thank you, people, for everyone for putting in all these far-flung places. Mesa is pretty close, San Diego. I'm also in California, Los Angeles, Berlin, New Mexico. Like, just really touching my heart to get the sense of the the land, the places where you all are. Manchester, Amsterdam, Stockholm, Santa Barbara, Portugal, Athens. We have Nova Scotia, Texas, London. Thank you. Thank you all for joining us today. And just taking a moment to feel this place-based practice that we are, we being earthlings, earth creatures, our bodies made of the earth, really touching into where we are, this place that we are, and offering gratitude not only to the land, but to the stewards of the land. In my case, here in Oakland, California, it's the Ohlone people who have, since time immemorial, really honored and cared for and sustained this land. And I offer this acknowledgement not only because of the beauty of that practice, the indigenous practices of stewarding the land, but because too often we have overlooked and ignored that history. So really just taking a moment to hold deeply all the histories of the land where you're at and how it's come to be that you are part of that story now. Thank you for these different things in the chat. Thank you, everyone. And I also want to, before we start our meditation, offer a deep practice to the lineage that I come to practice in. I'm not a Buddhist by birth, as some of you may be. I come to it from Irish Catholic tradition, and through my practice, actually, I saw someone from Albuquerque. I learned Buddhism in Albuquerque first, of all places, So we find our practice in the world in the way that we will, and because of that, I have just deep gratitude for all of the people through time and space and geography and the cultures and the origin of this practice in Asia, Southeast Asia, coming through to be here in all of the places where you each find yourself somehow through time and space and those moments of people over 2,600 years making this commitment to practice, to wake up. So we are all part of this lineage which originated in Asia and Southeast Asia at the time of the Buddha. So deep gratitude to that lineage. And the last acknowledgement I want to make before we begin our meditation is this place of how we are all connected via the labor and engagement and relationship with other people. I mean, here we are, like it's this magic of popping up in this virtual world. Like how is it that you are in my living room, or wherever you are, maybe your kitchen, maybe you're outside. There are countless beings who have made it possible for us to be together today. Just thinking of every ingredient in our computer and who gathered those resources and put it together and made it possible for us to connect. Or even just this way that there's this like something happening energetically through time and space that arrives here. And I believe that you're there. So I see something happening here on the whiteboard. So I'm thinking, appreciating whatever, but wondering what's going on here. But thank you, these amazing things that we can do with each other.
I'm trying to see how to get rid of that. I don't know where it's coming from. Okay.
Thank you. See, we have new things happening in every moment, but this is part of our, the ingenuity and the creativity of humans. So I'll be offering some meditation instruction, and then we'll offer some Dharma reflections and some time for questions and sharing in community. So I'm going to invite you to meditate in a posture that allows you to feel at home. So standing, seated, maybe moving, whatever, lying down, this invitation towards intimacy with oneself in the Sangha, in the community. There'll be many periods of silence along with instructions, and I'll begin us with inviting the bell. Inviting you to begin this practice of meditation by welcoming yourself, with kindness, with friendliness, welcoming yourself just as you are in this moment. Maybe tired, sleepy, restless, agitated. No worries. Inviting your whole self just as you are to be present. Perhaps by starting by inviting in gentle relaxation of the body, letting go of any extra tension you may be carrying, perhaps moving the shoulders or the neck, or taking a deep inhale and long exhale. Whatever may allow you to feel a little more relaxed in this moment. Not needing to make yourself a certain way, rather a gentle invitation to being with yourself with kindness. And as you bring your awareness fully into the body, it can be helpful to allow your mindfulness to settle in the body, immersed in the body, perhaps by feeling the weight of your body, feeling the body resting on the earth beneath you, the chair, the cushion, the ground. Taking a moment to feel the connection, the contact of your body with the earth, the cushion, the chair beneath you. And perhaps inviting a sense of rest, our bodies resting and being held and supported by the earth. In each moment, grounded, held, resting on the earth. Feeling into this relative stillness of the earth. And then perhaps as you bring your awareness into the body, becoming aware of the flow of the breath. Feeling both the groundedness beneath us and in the body, and the flow. Perhaps noticing the air around the body, the air inside the body, and this dance, this movement of reciprocity of our bodies and the earth and all other bodies. With each breath, the dance with the universe. It can be helpful during the beginning or for more of our meditation period to connect with a home base, an anchor in the body. For some people, that may be the contact, that connection, the grounding, feeling the body on the earth or the hands touching each other, connecting to the body. For others, the home base may be the breath, wherever the flow of the breathing body is most present for you. The belly or the lungs, the nostrils, or the whole body breathing. Inviting in the home base as a touchstone to guide us to presence, to being here in this moment and not lost. Our practice of mindfulness as a practice of intimacy and befriending each moment. As we bring our awareness into the body, connecting with the expansion, the contraction of the breath, feeling the resonance of the breathing body, this gift of vitality, and letting go and offering the gift of the exhale. We may also become aware of mind states that are expansive or contracting, the way the body may respond to thoughts by contracting or expanding, the play of emotions in the body, opening, closing. This practice of mindfulness immersed in the body, we become familiar, intimate, learn to befriend ourselves, capacity for non-judgmental awareness, loving kindness, offering compassion and care to each moment as it arises and then passes away. As we come towards the end of this period of meditation, I invite you to take a moment to appreciate yourself, perhaps appreciating yourself for showing up today, for your commitment to practice, or perhaps appreciating a moment during the meditation when you offered kindness, care, or were able to turn towards and be present with the way things are for you in this moment. Or maybe offering gratitude to some other aspect of your day. And then if it feels appropriate, including in your circle of appreciation, everyone else who has shown up today for our meditation community, our Sangha Live, appreciating the way that we can come together to practice Kalyanamita, this capacity of spiritual friendship. And then extending the circle of gratitude and appreciation to the many humans near and far, known and unknown, whose lives are interwoven with ours, friends, family, neighbors, those we don't know who grew our food, built the computers, maintained the energy web, all the many ways that we're connected to people all over the planet. And extending this gratitude and appreciation to all beings, all plants, all animals, all living beings, mushrooms, microscopic organisms, this web of life. And then bringing in the planet Earth, the blessings of the earth, offering gratitude for the blessings of the soil, the blessings of the rocks, blessings of the minerals, offering gratitude for the blessings of the air, the atmosphere, offering gratitude for the blessings of the water inside us, the water around us, the oceans, the rivers, the puddles, the dew, offering gratitude for this amazing planet, remembering that our practice is deeply interwoven. We invite this practice not only for our own benefit, but also for the benefit of all, everywhere, seen and unseen, near and far, sentient and non-sentient. We offer this practice for the liberation of all beings. Thank you all for that practice. Just take a moment to stretch or whatever you need to do for your body after that period, perhaps getting a glass of water or moving in a certain way, taking care of your four-leggeds. Sometimes that needs to happen after meditation if they're in your room. Before I start the offering on the practice of the beautiful, I wanted to offer a few words. Marnie was mentioning how Sangha Live is really supported by all of you with this practice of Dana, D-A-N-A, and just really wanting to really offer gratitude for that commitment to this practice of generosity. And one of the beautiful things about generosity is that ability to have access that is people, the access is not gated or boundaried by the ability to have financial means. And so really grateful for Sangha Live for that, and for each of you for offering Dana, generosity in the way that you are in your communities, in your towns, and perhaps as well to Sangha Live. Oh, thank you, Marty. There's a particular way to offer financial donations in that link there. And really remembering that the Dhamma has been offered freely, without charge, so it can be accessible, so everybody can hear and have access to the Dharma. And also because there is no value, it's measureless, it's priceless. There's no way that we can actually quantify what it means. And so that's part of our practice, that each of us gets to engage in that practice of how it is that we want to engage in this support and generous communities that we are with each other. So if you are able and have the financial means, that is one of the beautiful ways that you can support this organization and the teachings. And also knowing that there are other ways that we support the liberating wisdom of the Dharma in acts of generosity. So thanks, Marnie, for your service today in that regard as well. And I'm sure there are others of you who are supporting us in ways that I don't know. Thank you. So I wanted to invite us into this talk today, the practice of the beautiful, by acknowledging that here in California, many of us are celebrating what is called Pride Month for the LGBTQIA community, lesbian, bi, trans, bisexual. I already said that one. Lesbian. Oh, there's too many alphabet letters. All of those people. So all of us who are here, we are celebrating Pride Month. And so you're welcome to celebrate along with us in any ways that you feel called to. So the practice of the beautiful is really a practice of inclusion. Thanks, Jane, for your little cheering on there, your emoji thing that we can do. So I wanted to start off by sharing one of my favorite teachings of the Buddha from Vinaya. And so this is actually a teaching to the monastics, but it's also relevant for me as a teacher. So when the Buddha was talking to those people who were teaching the Dhamma, this is what was said. The Buddha said, "Go forth for the good of the many, for the happiness of the many, out of compassion for the world, for the benefit, for the good, for the happiness of all. Teach the Dhamma that is beautiful in its beginning, beautiful in its middle, and beautiful in its ending." So I really have appreciated this orientation towards the beautiful as a way that has supported me in practicing in a way that's less judgmental, less valuative, getting me off of this stream of the in order to, like I'm practicing in order to find, be, have, and all of those habits of mine that just arise because of all of my conditioning. So this practice of the beautiful, the Dharma that is beautiful, beautiful throughout, is really a way that we can kind of bring to mind this orientation, how to engage and remind ourselves of how to let go of some of those habits of conditioning of the in order to the betterment project, if you will. So many of you may have chanted with monastic communities or in other communities, or have seen in the suttas these words that are in Pali: Sanditiko, Akaliko, Ehipasiko, Opanaiko. And this is a reference to the Dharma. Sanditiko, Akaliko, Ehipasiko, Opanaiko. So this is what the Dharma is. The Dharma is Sanditiko, immediate. Right now, we have access to the Dharma, access to this beautiful. Akaliko, not limited to a particular time. His teachings may have arisen 2,600 years ago, or some people say before that, and yet they are timeless now. Openaiko. And this is the part where we brought inward to manifest right here. So these are what the Dharma is. Dharma that is beautiful in the beginning, beautiful in the middle, beautiful in its ending. So this is timeless, immeasurable, to be known here and now. And I think of that, and it boggles the mind, frankly, this analytical mind. It boggles the mind because in every moment I can know that the world is a mess. You know, it is a mess. There is destruction that's happening, outside my doorstep as well as around the world. We are in a climate catastrophe. There's violence, there's wars, genocide. My heart is broken. And yet, here is the Dhamma in this moment. And so I try not to think too much about this contradiction of how do I figure that out, but I allow it to be fruitful. I allow it to blossom in the practice. And it's interesting to me that the word in the Pali, the language of the Buddha, was written down in, the word for beautiful is Kalyana. And most of us know Kalyana from this phrase, Kalyana Mita, spiritual friends, Kalyana. There are some translations, there are some other places in the suttas where Kalyana is in reference to other things as well. But frequently we hear Kalyana is Kalyana Mita, spiritual friends, radical friends, the Sangha, those with whom we practice, those who practice well. And Kalyana, this word that is often translated as the beautiful, is also translated as virtuous, excellent conduct, sila, integrity, ethics. So we hang out with these spiritual friends because they're also on the path. They have this inclination towards integrity, towards the practice of the beautiful, the practice of living this life of virtue. And it also points to, I think, this aspect of the beautiful, where the beautiful is a practice of relationship. And so in that quote that I shared at the beginning, it says, the practice of the Dhamma, beautiful in the beginning. But before that, it says, go forth for the good of the many, for the happiness of the many, out of compassion for the world, for the benefit, for the good, for the happiness of all. And so it's interesting to me that this Kalyana, the beautiful, is coupled with Mita and Sangha, and that we can think of the beautiful as this manifesting of relationships, relationship to community, relationship to spiritual friendship, relationship to ethics, to virtue, integrity, and relationship to ourselves also. So I think of this path of the beautiful as really a coming into wholeness, a coming into connection. And we have to think about this relationships of connection to ourselves internally, in relationship with our communities externally, and in relationship with both. And I point this out because some of us have perhaps a tendency to be in one direction or the other. Some of us are really oriented externally and involved in community and out there and doing all these things. And some of us are more involved inwardly and have an inward focus of our practice. And yet there's this instructions from the Buddha to include all of that. Mindfulness internally, mindfulness externally, and both. And so those of you who are familiar with the teachings of the four foundations of mindfulness may be aware that there's the four foundations, and then in the four foundations, there's a refrain. And so this is in reference to the body, in the reference to Vedana, the feeling tone, reference to the mind, reference to the Dhammas. It says that we use this contemplation to consider these teachings internally, externally, and both. And so this may be particularly a meditation instruction, but I also see it as an application of the teachings, like as was mentioned in the one when I said, we go for the benefit of all. So for example, in the foundation, Satipatthana, the teachings of foundations of mindfulness, the refrain is, in this way, regard to the body, one abides contemplating the body internally, one abides contemplating the body externally, or abides contemplating the body both internally and externally. And so if we use this teaching to know that all of these ways of contemplating are necessary, and we can use the body, it goes through in different ways, so maybe the elements or whatever the focus of our mindfulness. And so the body of the world, if we consider the body externally, there's so many ways to consider that manifesting. We could have the body of the earth, as I invited us into during our meditation, and we consider the body of the plants, the animals, the other beings that surround us. We can bring that really, really wide to this ancestral evolutionary body of the earth, where we are in time, or we can bring this very small into the immediacy of, perhaps me here in the city in Oakland, or you wherever you may be. And we can also think about it in human bodies, our own very nature of our own human body, or we can think of it in nature to the human bodies that surround us. And so this practice is a directing of attention, a way of seeing, a way of engaging both internally and externally, and both. And as we have this practice, we can see that we are not separate, that there is no separation. There is not a place where my breath, I'm just going to hold it in. This is my breath. No, you can't have it. I'm just holding my breath, not going to allow it. And whose breath is it that reaches me? Whose water is inside me? Those of you who know me know that I taught public school for many years, and I would always have a great time talking about this. We get to the water cycle, and you can be like your water was inside the trees, was inside the dinosaurs, passes through the rocks, and people, my kids will always be a little bit like, wow, this water, we are just bags of water, and yet we are so much more too. And so it is very essential for our practice that we do not just think of mindfulness internally, which is a really beautiful practice. Don't get me wrong. I love practicing the suttas and the practicing samadhi and concentration and just really getting still internally. And there are dangers of that internal practice. Bhikkhu Analayo, who some of you may know, is a Theravadan monk, German-born, amazing translator, has written a number of books on the sutta, the Satipatthana Sutta. And he speaks to this refrain in his book. And he says, this shift of awareness from the individual content of a particular experience to its general features is of central importance for the development insight. And he says, for the balanced development of awareness, this shift from the internal to the external is of considerable importance. So we both have to shift. We have to knowingly shift from our internal to the external. And he says, awareness applied only internally can lead to self-centeredness. One can become excessively concerned with what happens with and within oneself, while at the same time remaining unaware of how one's actions and behavior affect others. Practicing both internal and external satipatthana, that's the foundation of mindfulness, external mindfulness can prevent such lopsidedness and achieve a skillful balance. Particularly those of us who grew up in cultures that are very individually focused. So for example, in the US, oftentimes we have a much more of an individual focus than that of the culture from which Buddhism originated, which was much more of a collective focus. So in Asia and Southeast Asia, there's often a much more of a collective focus. And so those of us who can see this balance might end up with a self-centeredness of like, oh yeah, I'm feeling great now. I just had my 30 minutes of meditation. Now here I go. And really opening to that external as well as the internal, we can have that balance. And so it's not just about me, because the teachings teach us that it's never, can't actually ever be just about me, because there is that non-separation. And yet it can be really hard to translate. What does this internal and external mean? You know, how do we bring this alive into our world? Because for me, sometimes, you know, this one here, me, this being can feel so overlooked, so left out, so trampled, so, you know, so harmed by so many others that the last thing I want to be is in relationship with those people, you know? And so we have learned over time to protect ourselves, to remove ourselves, to protect ourselves from the harm and injustices of the world as it is, past history, ancestors. You know, how do we then remind us of this practice, this capacity for beauty, for looking at the world through the lens of beauty? And so that was where, when I was thinking about this practice of beauty, I was thinking about these tendencies that I have experienced, and perhaps you have seen yourself or in others. But one of the things that happens in relationship to the world is, rather than going into this practice of the timeless, the Dhamma that's here and now, and the ability to be with, is we go into this practice of fragmentation, of breaking down, getting split off, shattering. And then after that, sometimes what happens is that we further that practice of separation by adding in shame, you know, deep self-judgment, blame. So this is the process. And, you know, we get detached. We feel ourselves incomplete. And can we be okay with that? Can we be okay of that process just happening? That sometimes we feel separate, even though we may know on some level that, you know, I am just one of the waves in the many oceans. Sometimes I feel so separate. And not add that shame, not add the judgment. And knowing that others are feeling that too, that sense of not feeling seen. And sometimes in relation to this world that feels so overwhelming, we can also get very solid, very stable. We can just kind of like, this is who I am. And some may say right now in the Pride Month that, why are you doing this? Why do you feel the need to stay who you are? And yet we also know sometimes you won't see us if we don't be like, hello, here we are. So it's not inherent in each of these actions of either fragmentation or solidity. It's not a judgment of them. It's just knowing that this concretization, this becoming, is just a short, impermanent process. Because what will happen is that we will begin to judge and evaluate both of these, the fragments, the solidity. Am I useful? Am I useful? People will name us in different ways. And I've certainly felt that gaze of others on me. And we are named and evaluated by our families, by our schools, by our cultures over and over and over again. And so then we develop strategies to survive in the world in which we are in. And I think it's really important to me I have learned to deeply honor those strategies, even as I know I don't want to be that way anymore. I don't want to have to put on all my armor to go out into the day. But I also want to honor the fact that that armor got me here. Like I had to kind of figure out some of this along the way. And maybe I just like, in a museum piece, then you go and you see the armor hanging on a little thing, you're like, wow, look at all that, the whatever the chain, whatever they were, like, wow, that was pretty amazing. And look, there's some softness under there. So when I was thinking about some of these places that I felt the need to armor myself, this is one that always comes up, but like just these words and phrases from others in the community. But you're such a pretty girl. I always get that all the time when I was a kid because they would be like, why do you dress like that? You're such a pretty girl. Do you know you could be blah, blah, blah? As if I was trying to commodify myself and make myself into this pretty girl thing. You have such lovely long hair. You would be so cute. Like all of these ways that I was encouraged to concretize, to be a solid embodiment of what success might be. Or this sense that maybe you've gotten this even as you were practicing or going away to a silent meditation to you. Why are you doing that? How is that going to help you get ahead? And people thinking you're defective, you're not normal. You should be ashamed of yourself. All of these terms and things that have, been laden on us. And our practice can help us meet it with kindness, with care, not to turn away, not to embellish, but to be with. And we can do it for ourselves and we can do it for each other. I'm really appreciating some of the things that are in the chat. And I was saying to Marnie that, I'm of the age that I'm not really able to multitask in that way. So please don't feel like I'm overlooking your beautiful drops of wisdom in there. I'm just not going to interweave it into my thought process. So thanks for your understanding on that. I wanted to share part of a poem by Galway Kinnell. Some of you may know it. It's called St. Francis and the Sow. And it's about this way that we don't always know our own beauty. And he says, the bud, B-U-D, the bud stands for all things, even for those things that don't flower. The bud stands for all things, even those things that don't flower, for everything flowers. Everything flowers from within of self-blessing, though sometimes it is necessary to reteach a thing its loveliness. Sometimes it is necessary to reteach a thing its loveliness, to put a hand on its brow of the flower and retell it in words and in touch. It is lovely until it flowers again from within of self-blessing. I remember when I first heard this poem, this line of sometimes it is necessary to reteach a thing its loveliness. It landed so powerfully for me because even though I would get these accolades around something I did or something I accomplished, there was a part of me that didn't know that inside I had this beauty, whether we want to call it Buddha nature or whatever the term, that there was this loveliness. And so it was in others seeing and knowing and sharing in this Kalyana Mita, whether it was the LGBTQIA community for me or radical inclusive center like the East Bay Meditation Center here in Oakland, that I began to feel this loveliness inside, not someone else just kind of, oh, good job. And so I think that we can support each other in this manifestation. And that is also with this practice that we begin to turn towards. All right, let me put that in the chat here. The poem is longer than this. Sorry, I am responding to the chat now. Look at me. Um, so that's the St. Francis and the Sow by Galway Kinnell. So this reteaching ourselves our loveliness is really this way that we can align with the way we are, just as we are, not as kind of like who we're trying to be put into. So I want to share this story of this exchange I had. I was teaching, there's a beautiful program that happens at Spirit Rock in the summertime, which is a family program, and families come. And then I was one of the teachers of the group of kids who were in the tween group. So, not teens, not little kids, that little awkward age there. And as with all good groups, there's often conflict and things that arise. And so I was mentioning to the kids about how hard it was for me being that age and people wanting me to be a certain way and not being that way and me wanting to be myself and all of these things. And so I use the image of this being a square peg, trying to, my family, this society, culture, school, trying to chisel off my edges to have this square peg fit in the round hole. And you may have different edges that stuck out in your family, in your culture, than the ones that I'm describing as, being queer or non-binary or neurodivergent or whatever the edges that you have. So I was sharing this with the kids, and there was this one kid who was, very exuberant, mischievous, you might say, was always kind of causing the ruckus in the group. And he said afterwards, he's like, I know why you didn't fit in the circular hole. It's because you needed a heart-shaped hole. You needed a heart-shaped hole. And oh my gosh, I just heard that and I didn't even know I needed a heart-shaped hole, but I just burst into tears, when he said that. Like I was just like, this is so you are absolutely right. And we each need that, we each need that heart-shaped hole so that we can know our loveliness, we can feel that beauty. And too often that's not what we encounter. We encounter places that we are restricted in ways that are challenging. And so it is hard to know that beauty. And so I believe our practice it's essential for us to practice this internal where we can come close and have that care and compassion and the love, and also externally. What are the perspectives that we're bringing to a situation? What are we not seeing? Who is not here? Who is being left out? What am I leaving out inside? What am I not allowing here? What am I not allowing in my communities? So these are the ways that I think we can have this practice of the beautiful, where we can reach beyond that which we've been taught. That's what we think we know will bring us freedom. Because so often we end up on this path that we think of as providing comfort or success. And if we orient towards beauty, this measureless capacity where we are not measuring ourselves by these quotas or status or normalcy, heteronormativity, somebody put in the chat. So I think that this practice of the beauty is this practice to act with integrity. This practice of welcoming ourselves, welcoming the weeds, welcoming the muck, welcoming the compost, really bringing ourselves into this commitment to knowing how it is right now, internally, externally, and both. So I wanted to finish by offering this quote from one of my teachers, Larry Yang, and from his book, Awakening Together, the Practice of Inclusivity and Community. Put that in the chat. And he says, who are we beyond who we think we are? Who are we beyond who we think we are? Our mind heartfulness is an invitation to journey into the answers that lie beyond the question. When we come to a common sense of the heart and mind together, in common with every spiritual tradition, not to mention every human being, instead of eating each other alive with violence, succumbing to greed, hatred, and delusion, we might start to feed each other with care in order to awaken our hearts and minds together. So let me read that one more time as we finish together. Who are we beyond who we think we are? Our mind heartfulness is an invitation to journey into the answers that lie beyond the question. When we come to a common sense of the heart and mind together, in common with every spiritual tradition, not to mention every human being, instead of eating each other alive with violence, succumbing to greed, hatred, and delusion, we might start to feed each other with care in order to awaken our hearts and minds together. So thank you. Thank you all so much for your kind attention. Really appreciating you being here today and really wanting to invite us into this practice of wisdom sharing and community that Marnie mentioned earlier, and inviting your reflections, your comments. What is your practice of beauty? What are your questions you may have for me about anything that I shared? So if you would like to do that, I invite you to use the little raise your hand feature on Zoom, the little digital hand, so that we can have you brought up into the screen for sharing. Jane, please.
I'm sorry, I just had to comment. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You really made my day, and I feel very whole at this moment.
Mm,
Kind of like, woo. Um, I am an out lesbian and I'm a psychotherapist, and I think the thing that really I would say about my life with meditation is I started meditating when I was a child, and what I discovered, I mean, I didn't have a goal, I didn't have a plan, I just liked meditating. And what I discovered happened to me was that, and I didn't go inward, I didn't go selfishly inward, I guess I'd say. But what happened was I had this huge opening of my heart to those that didn't accept me and didn't invite me into their community or whatever, or were sexist or gender, whatever, homophobic, all
mhm.
these things.
Yeah, yeah.
But I found that I became very compassionate towards them
Hmm.
rather than I don't want to be judged, so I don't want to judge them. And it really changed my whole way of coping with all this chaos in our world by really seeing that I'm only feeding it if I'm doing the same thing they're doing. And I want to accept them for who they are. I don't like what they're doing, but I want to understand where it comes from for them because something happened that made them have these ways of they feel threatened, it seems to me.
Yeah,
But I just
yeah,
wanted
yeah.
your enlightened thoughts on that. And once again, really, it's been a gift. Thank you.
Oh, thanks so much for that, Jane. I really appreciate that reflection on how the practice, we don't know where we're going with the practice. I mean, like you said, you just bring it here and then you realize the capacity to hold. So one of the things that I think is that, this fragmentation that happens as we are practicing and we're cultivating this really to, sacred care of ourselves, we realize, that people are more than the horrors and the violence that happens. And it's not to deny accountability, but it really is to say that, we can bring compassion to all of those difficult places. So thank you for acknowledging that way we can increase our capacity with our practice. Thank you. Um, Marita, I'm not sure if I said your name correctly.
Hello.
Hi.
Um, Lately, I've been thinking a lot about this inner outer uh, because I'm, amongst many other things, I'm a political activist.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And what's happening in Europe now is making me frustrated, angry, fearful. And yet, I feel that I need to be out there. And sometimes I just can't seem to find the balance. Because, as you said, you mentioned before, people tell me, but you're a meditator. You're supposed to be calm, collected, and I'm so angry. But I mean, so I just wanted to uh, share these thoughts.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mm,
Yeah, yeah. This has been coming up in a lot of the places I've been teaching that people feel like anger is not acceptable in our circles. And, um, if we go to the teachings of the body, for example, in the Satipatthana, there's air, there's water, there's earth, and there's fire.
mm,
We have fire. We are alive. We are passionate humans. We're
mm,
not, you know, I, we are, we have this part of it, and just like all of the things, it's like sometimes fire erupts. Like if we think about the earth, there's volcanoes, and sometimes that happens. And so for us as humans, that fire and that passion can drive us to beautiful actions and service of
mm,
freedom. And it can also drive us to incredible destruction and violence and othering of. So we have a choice with our practice. Where is that passion? Where is that fire going to be in service to? Out of compassion for the many, of the benefit. So staying home and practicing can be one period of time, and then it can be in the, doing whatever kind of activism you are in service of whatever it is that you're doing. But that fire is essential. And I think that that's the virya, that's the practice that we say, that's the urgency of our spiritual practice. That's the energy that comes through. That's like right now, spiritual urgency that is part of the fire. And so it's really needed. So, and we also need to balance that with the compassion for ourselves, because we have physical bodies that have physical needs of rest and, eating and care and all of that. So sometimes the fire can move us in ways that we forget that we actually have these bodies that we need to rest and care and be in community with. So thank you for that.
Yes, and then also to learn to put out the fire in ourselves sometimes, in order to not just erupt and disappear in hopelessness,
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. Victoria Martino.
Thank you so much for this beautiful talk about the beautiful, really beautiful. I was intrigued because I didn't know, I've heard you speak before, but I didn't know that, I guess I should have guessed it by Doyle, but I didn't know that you had an Irish Catholic background. But I'm very active in interfaith dialogue, and I'm actually a practicing Catholic, but I always use it with a little c, because I'm actually not, I don't belong to any church because I believe in unity. And I'm trying to practice Buddhism, but that's harder. But I wanted to, one thing I've found sort of on both sides of the fence, as it were, which of course are not really sides of the fence, but it's all the same, spiritual earth. I feel that we're all, interbeing. What I've noticed just in my own encounters, a rising antipathy towards the contemplative path. And because our world is burning up, but I've always felt that those who, you spoke so poignantly about how our practice is not just for ourselves, it is for the world. And it's, anyway, I don't want to take up too much time, but I'm having trouble articulating what I want to ask you. It's how to, I guess, how to engage with people who feel like, for example, I'm constantly attacked by people I know that I don't follow the news at all, except indirectly in prayer sessions, in fact. So I have friends who are priests who say, yes, it's our job to know exactly what's going on in the world as much as possible so we can pray, and we can pray as a community. And for me, that buffer helps a lot, because I'm too easily triggered into trauma. And so I'm wondering if you can give me some, or give us some tips as to how to hold the contemplative I'm sorry, it's very
Yeah, no, thank you. I really appreciate this. And I, because for me, it has been a path of like, I felt like my practice and meditation and retreats and things like that have been very self-indulgent. Like that was an assessment. That was an evaluation of me. Like, this is self-indulgent. I should be. And part of, we know in the Buddha's, the middle way, is that there's no one right way. There's no one right way. And so this body, heart, mind has had traumas that your body, heart, mind has had. You've had traumas that I haven't. So what might work for one person might not work for another. And yet we want to work towards this internal, external. And if we see that we're getting self-indulgent or self-centered, can we bring in a greater view? Like, oh, when you said that, I was like, wow, to read the news as an act of prayer, like, what would that be like? Like, to hold that. And then I was remembering also, because you mentioned the Catholicism, that I was very grateful when I learned that Mother Teresa, who had a very externally active service, that she went and 4 hours a day prayed like alone. Like, so that was how she did. But I'm like during her 4 hours that she was out there, or however many hours, like, but so it wasn't just this giving, giving, giving. There was this replenishment. So each of us has to find our path in that. So I think that when the judging comes in and somebody tells you this is how you should do it, to me, that's always been like, well, it doesn't, let me just say, you telling me how I should do it, it's a little bit of a, can we have a little more grace there? So, yeah, thank you. I'm just
Thank
noticing the time. And I want to see there's another hand raised. So thank you.
Thank you.
Please, Don.
My question has to do with, I guess, forgiveness or maintaining
Mm.
connectedness with things that are uncomfortable that come up. It could be, it's often maybe individuals that have expectations of oneself. So it could be even what is in the chat culturally. And so when Jane said that she was able to, with prayer, was able to find compassion, and being honest that I struggle with that, giving loving kindness in your prayers to someone that has caused me deep discomfort, I said, or a place that I think they've taken me to a place where it's not safe, and I don't know how to cross that, and let go of resentment, or, what I do is I tend to close off and I just say, okay, stay away from that person, and so forth. So, but I cannot give them loving kindness. I don't feel compassion or to actually go to where they're coming from. And I understand that, but there's just too much going on, that I have to spend my energy for myself because I don't even know how to do that. Because this is what mindfulness and the Sangha is, um, be who you are. And, for me, it was the first time I heard that a couple of years ago. And I said, what? Or be gentle with yourself, or with self-care and stuff. And when I bring up self-care, for others, people say, well, we don't have the money for that. Oh, we don't have the time. And we're talking business and stuff, and stuff. And so people are not allowed to go there. But I struggle with that main thing about, and I think it has to do with forgiveness, or forgiveness of myself for maintaining this. I go, uh-oh, here they are, I don't want them near me, kind of thing. And yet, so that doesn't mean I can't get to where I think Jane has been in her prayers. So I think that's wonderful, but that's what I searched, because then I think I'm holding on to it. That's the thing. So anyway, that's,
I want to thank you, Don, for your wisdom, because what you're sharing is, I'm noticing the time, so I'm just going to be short here, but this is what part of our practice. Our practice is about developing an appropriate response. And the Buddha, had one of the statues of the Buddha that I love is the Buddha standing there with his hand up, and he's just saying no. There's a boundary, but it's from a place of love. It's from a place of love. Like I am so beautiful. I have this loveliness. I will not let you treat me that way. It's not about you. It's about me honoring myself so deeply that, I will offer compassion and love right here because I'm not getting it there. And I'm just, saying no in the most loving way that I can. And the practice of self-compassion in those instances, we often think, oh, I need to give compassion to that person. But right now, that hurt. And compassion, offering it right here. And we know that this internal and external will ultimately be spread in both directions. And so that practice that we develop for our own self-care will go elsewhere. And so I appreciate this complexity of offering service, offering self-care, offering, especially because of things like being your culture and all those things, which unfortunately I'm looking at the time and people put other things in the chat about racism, heteronormativity, and just really thank you all for what you have shared today. I really, really appreciate that you showed up, and really appreciate that, Dawn. Thank you. Sorry we don't have more time for your question. So someone also speaking to forgiveness. So thank you for that. Marty, thank you for putting in my website there. And one of the things that will end, and then we'll have a chance for people to come on and say goodbye and all of that, but let's end with the dedication of merit. And this is another way that we can engage with others in this offer of the heart, and acknowledging our interconnectedness. So let's take a moment together to offer this dedication of merit. So I'll be a very short one today because I see the time. So reflecting on our time together and your intentions for showing up, your practice, and knowing that there are benefits of this beautiful practice, of the practice of the Dhamma. May we offer any of that beauty, that wisdom, the truth, this merit to a particular person or group of people or to all beings, knowing that our practice is not only for our own benefit, but the benefit of others as well. May we offer this practice to those who may find themselves in harm's way, those who experience violence, those who may not know how to practice peace. May we offer this practice for the liberation, for the freedom of all. Thank you.